King Mike X here with another Dragalia Lost video, and today I'm going to be doing a kind of a mid. It's technically the middle. I mean, we're going to get a new banner soon, but this is a Dragon tier list that I'm going to be doing for the middle of July. I'm going to do another one at the end of this one, but I wanted to make some changes from the last one. There hasn't been any new dragons since the last one I made. I just wanted to go over the changes and give my what my choices are. So first off, let's go with D. In D, I have Brunhilde, Erasmus, all the 3-star dragons from each element, and then from each element I have Brunhilde and Erasmus, Mercury, Midgard, Sormir, and Jupiter. The only reason why I put them in here is because they don't have anything special. They're no cost. They're not the best dragon, and there's always going to be better dragons. You shouldn't really use them anymore. Early games they were probably fine, but now after this time, there's so many better options. Now let's move on to D+. In D+, I have Pele, which Pele is very similar to Brunhilde. The only difference is that, well, Pele not only does have better abilities, but also causes burn. Pengai is essentially the same thing with Mercury. Oh, and Pele is actually Erasmus, but with burn essentially. But I'm pretty sure it's Pengai or whatever. It is basically Mercury, but causes bog and has better abilities. Then I put in Poseidon. Poseidon doesn't do much of anything. He's HP and strength. Well, Pengai is only HP, and it's a warfare unit. And then I put Palyahu, who is only also an HP dragon, but Palyahu can freeze. Then we have Yulong and Sylvia and Streiborg. They're all wind dragons. These two are HP, but these two suck, and Yulong is an attack, but yeah, they're nothing special. They don't do anything unique. I was thinking about putting, now here's one, Shishimai. I was thinking about putting him up into C, but here's the thing. His whole gimmick is he only does crit damage. He only boosts crit damage by 70%. Which unfortunately isn't the best thing right now because there's not like any good units that can be. I mean, okay, besides maybe the only unit that this would have been useful on is probably Garuda. And his ability is different. Most of these guys have skills that are okay at best. His skill is a boost, but it's random and it's a one-time use. Which can boost one of your stats. When like attack, strength, or crit rate, like strength, defense, or crit rate, if I remember correctly. Then there's Unicorn, who is a healing, who has an HP checker, but is an attacking unit. Still not that amazing. Phantom. Okay, but essentially that would be it for light. And then we're moving on to Shadow. Now Shadow has. Here's the thing. The Fafnirs, the bronze, silver, and gold, the reason why I put them in there is they're for dailies, essentially. Their only use comes from dailies because the bronze Fafnir, they don't, even though they're shadow, their abilities aren't locked to a specific element. Anyone can use them with their abilities. They just won't get the boost like Shadow does. But if you wanted to know what their things are, bronze boosts, at max bound, bronze boosts the adventurer's experience by 150%, so you're getting 2.5 times more experience for that adventurer. Silver Fafnir increases the mana by 50%, so you're getting 1.5 times more mana each quest. And gold, the one I use the most, at max level boosts rupees, the rupee amount by 50%. So you're getting 150% more per adventurer. And the best thing is, Bronze Fafnir can only, here's the thing, Bronze Fafnir can only be it's only for that specific adventure that they're on, but silver and gold can stack on each other. So in total, if you wanted to, you can have up to 4 people having either of those, and as a result, you would get about 3 times the amount of rupees and gold that you do. But I never do. 3 is fine enough. You want to at least have some way to clear a quest fast with good characters, and dragons do get big boosts. So yeah, I used to use silver. Silver doesn't really see much of use nowadays, except for probably people who somehow, because like mana is so plentiful easily, except for people who probably ran out of mana, who are starting a game and don't have a lot of mana. But gold is probably the best one because you're getting more rupees out of it. Now, Maritimus and Phantom, I put them both here because, and Zodiac is here because of another reason. Here's the thing. Phantom is Maritimus is he's not that great, but he's still better than he's still a good unit. He's still an okay. He's not like completely trash because well, just to show Maritimus. Maritimus can inflict freeze, and if I remember correctly, for just to show. Just to go into dragons here. As you see, Erasmus doesn't do much of any. His skill doesn't do much of anything. Pengnai does bog. Yulong doesn't do anything really. Neither does Sophie. Yes, Shishimai increases crit strength, defense, and crit rate. In one of those out of those 3. And Streiborg. If I was to go to Streiborg, Streiborg doesn't do much of anything either. Pengnai freezes, like I said. And Unicorn doesn't do much of anything. Most of the dragons in there don't do much of anything. Shishimai does freeze, which could be. Okay, whoops. Sorry about that. Now, but then, of course, there is the case with Phantom, and Maritimus does freeze. The reason why I put Zodiac in here as well as Phantom is because even though Phantom is strength, it has a better ability, gives more strength from his ability than Zodiac, and is technically stronger. The main reason why I put Zodiac in is because, well, unlike the 4 other dragons, which don't have any secondary effects on the ability, Zodiac has a secondary effect that is better, that makes skill better than Phantom. Phantom's skill causes blindness. Zodiac's is poison, which is why I put him up there, because that's just better. But that's essentially it for D plus. Now moving on to C, we have here Ifrit, and first thing I'm going to talk is Ifrit and Raphaelis. Now here's the thing. Ifrit is technically stronger in terms of stuff. The only reason why I put Raphaelis up above and why I put him on the same tier, like, Ifrit is definitely better than Pele in every way, but Raphaelis' skill is really damaging because it hits 3 times, it activates 3 times, and it does a lot of damage. I think it does like almost 1500% damage, and it burns. But he's HP and strength. He doesn't give as much raw boost as Ifrit does, but still, he is still very much useful. But Ifrit isn't too much. He's not the most amazing dragon. Like, out of the 4-star dragons that boost attack, he is, like, there's a couple of them, but there's one dragon in particular that you might have noticed isn't in here that I would talk about that is probably the best one, and for good reason. Now moving on to these characters, there is Mini Mids, who is an HP and strength dragon that does over 1500 damage with a skill, but it doesn't do anything really. Then there's Rock. Rock is a strength 45% damage dragon, and his actually skill stuns targets, so that's actually pretty useful. Then we have Liger. Liger also causes stun, if I remember correctly, or it might have been, no, I know, it's, if I remember, he is paralysis. I was thinking of Takemikazuchi. But yeah, he does paralysis. Nenron doesn't do anything special. And Halloween Silky, even though is HP and strength once again, just like that. The one thing reason why I keep her here is because her thing is that she's good for defense. Because not only, well, one, she attacks pretty dang fast, like one of the fastest attack. Like she gets a lot of attack. She's stronger than Mariah. But the main difference is that she decreases opponent's strength with her skill. So that's like the one thing that I would say about her. That's the only reason why I put her in there, is because it's good for defensive purposes. But otherwise I wouldn't. If she didn't have that, I would put her into it with Shishi. I'd probably put it down with Shishimai. Then we have Power, Zodiac, Juggernaut, and Silky. Silky is essentially, Halloween Silky and Silky are, they're both essentially the same. The difference being is that Silky being a shadow unit, instead of decreasing strength like her Halloween counterpart, she decreases defense by 15%. So yeah, she's more offensive, and Halloween Silky is more defensive. Then there's Juggernaut. Juggernaut hits like a truck. It hits kind of like a truck, at least. He hits really hard. Doesn't do anything special with his attack, though. But he was, for a time at first, because before we got some actual good strength dragons, he was the strongest. Before we got, he was the best dragon to use for shadows for the longest time, but that was before the New Year's. Then we have Parallel Zodiac. Parallel Zodiac is strength 20 and crit rate and crit damage 40%, but his skills is actually pretty strong. He's a good unit, but he's better than, I think, Phantom and other stuff, but he's not amazing still. It's why he's in C. He doesn't do any effects, but still, like I said, he's just his abilities make up for it, and the skill is pretty damaging. But now that's going to be it for C. Now I'm moving on to C+, where things are going to get a little bit more interesting. Now, there's only one I have for Freya, and that is Highborn Hilda. Highborn Hilda is, just like all the other high dragons, is HP and strength, but they also have dragon time. He also causes burn. As you can see, each one of these have like a special thing that they do, but each one of them is unique. But yeah, he causes burn and is why did I say he? She causes burn. Highborn Hilda causes burn and could do some pretty decent damage. Better than Raphael. It's essentially a better version of Raphael's. But essentially, that's all I have to say about her. Then we move on to High Mercury, who, as you saw, inflicts Bog. Essentially, kind of like a better version of and also does HP and strength and dragon time. Each one of the high dragons had that. Essentially, a better version of Raph. Essentially, a better version of Poseidon. Like a much better version. Now, let's move on to Styx. The most disappointing dragon ever. Right after we got Galatkatsith, we got Galakatsith, we got Styx. And Styx sucks. I wouldn't say he's completely terrible, but here's the thing. First of all, as you can see here with Styx's ability, it increases the damage of the next attack skill by 50% for every 15 seconds that pass. And this buff can stack up to 4 times. All stacks will be lost upon using an attack skill. Here's the issue of why that's bad. That literally means if you want to get to maximum damage, you have to wait a minute. And that's really bad. And his skill, but still, it could still do some decent damage, but he's not that great. But his skill is a little bit interesting, but here's where the bad part is. You have to do 3 combos. So here's the thing. This skill gets stronger depending on how many stacks you get, and at 16 stacks it does a lot of damage. But here's the reason why stick sucks. You have to do a 3-hit combo. 3 of them. So, and I heard rumors that you have to basically go without getting hit. And you have to attack constantly, so that's the thing. So, good luck with that, but yeah. Then there's Varianoi. That's why but he's still a decent unit. He can still dish out some pretty good damage. So that's the only reason why I'm still keeping him here. But honestly, he's a huge disappointment. I'm thinking about moving him into C. Then we have Varianoi. Varianoi, the only reason why I put him up here and why he's up here above the other dragons, he can't inflict burn or any of that stuff. In fact, I'm thinking of moving Ifrit up. The only reason why I put him up here, though, is because out of all the dragons, here's the thing. He was known for being a raid boss killing dragon back in the day because of his multiple hit attack was really good. So, to be honest, the only reason why is because, like, his attack skill was just, like, much better than the others that it just made him do a lot more damage to, like, flame raid bosses. But that's essentially the only reason why I put him above there. But other than that, he's nothing too remarkable. Then there's, I'm pretty sure it was like, can't remember that dragon's name. It was, if I remember correctly, oh yeah, Simurgh. Simurgh isn't that amazing either. As you can see, it's an HP 40 dragon, but it gives Overdrive Punisher, which doesn't make sense. And his skill does this. It's an attacking skill that heals the allies for 30% HP to all allies with 30% HP recovery. It's nothing too special. It's one of the worst HP dragons you could put on a healer. And trust me, there's a better one now. He used to be like one of the only options to use. In fact, I think he was the only option to use for the longest time. But yeah. Then there is Garuda. Garuda actually has HP plus 60, but essentially also has the same problems as Simurgh, an attacking move. But Garuda's is worse because Garuda's only heals the user. If I'm and to show you, going over to Garuda, uses HP of 35% of the damage inflicted. So this one, instead of just attacking and healing a certain amount, this one is like a lifesteal. Then we have High Midgard. Now High Midgard is good, just like same stats as all the other dragons, and as I said, but his skill is an attacking skill that inflicts stun, which is very useful. Essentially, a better version of Mini-Mitts. And then we have the only dragon tonight in here. So I'm thinking about moving. I was thinking about moving John the Arc down, but I'll give you the reason why I still don't think why I put her in B. And that is High Jupiter. High Jupiter inflicts paralysis, as I showed you. High Jupiter inflicts paralysis, and that's about it. It's nothing too special. But it's an okay dragon, nothing too much, just like any other dragons. Now let's move on to Shadow. We have Barbados, and Barbados isn't too special. It's an event welfare dragon. In fact, Shadow, I'm pretty sure, has the no wait, it's tied. It's tied for the most. No wait, no, it has the most of event welfare dragons. But in terms of raid, actually with raid, yeah, it has the most. It has 1, 2, 3, 4. It has 4. No other ones have more than 4. So now moving on from any of the events, but Barbados doesn't do much damage. But the only reason why I put him above is because with Shadow, there were a couple units that do better with lower HP and they can deal well with it, especially with Grace. And this is where And Barbados, as a result, becomes a HP 60% dragon. But that's the only reason why I put him in C plus over these dragons, because he could be used for, because some of them are definitely endgame content, specifically Curran and Belina. And specifically Curran, Belina, and Veronica all can match up with, all can do what, who all benefit from having no HP, can use this dragon. Mind you, I don't think there are better versions of this, but this is like one of the few backups that you can have. Now there's also Ebisu. I kind of skipped over him. Has the highest HP increase for, he boosts, in terms of abilities, he boosts HP more than any other on Shadow, more than any other dragon on Shadow from his ability, but he doesn't give the highest amount of HP. Same thing with same thing here with Semerg, with the HP 40, because the only other dragon in Shadow and Water have an HP 30%. But Ebisu, the one thing is, it does have a healing skill. The one issue is that the healing skill only heals the user, but it keeps the user alive for long enough. But so actually, if it can actually somewhat pair well with Grace. Now we're moving on to Mini Zodie. Now, it seems crazy that I'm putting him on here, but there's a reason why. He has the strongest. It's another HP and Strength Dragon, but the difference is that he's much stronger than Mini Mids, because he has the strongest in terms of damage that he could do with skill or skills, because some dragons can use it more than once. He's the strongest one. He does 1800% damage with his skill. No one gets close to that with any skill, even not even the likes of Mini Mids, who only does about 1500, or even Gala Mars, who can use the skill twice. But that's essentially it. And just to show you, because I also talked about how, yeah, Rathalos does 3 hits of 33 and 3 hits of 133 fling damage, and he does that 3 times. That's the reason why I put him out there. Now, he does, that's the only reason why I put him up here. Otherwise, I would put him down below, because Zodiac is a little bit different. Now, Zodiac, High Zodiac is really good, just like all the other dragons, but he doesn't inflict a status affliction like the other ones. Instead, he decreases the enemy's defense by 10%. So, yeah, that's his one difference. And so that's the only other. But yeah, he is still a pretty okay dragon, good to use, and so if you ever wanted to, you can. Now moving, and then the last one we're talking about is Nidhogg, who for a while was the premier dragon for healers. Because he boosted the most amount of HP for them when fully unbound. And his skill was okay. He inflicted blindness, but yeah, not many people transformed into him, but now he's been usurped. So, and we'll get to who usurped him for healers, and for actually buffers and for healers instead. But let's move on to B. Now we're getting into some of the better ones. First up we have Prometheus. No, not Prometheus. I'm thinking of the shadow one. Prometheus is a flamed dragon who also can cause burn. He doesn't cause burn, but he increases strength by 50% and adds 15% to wind resistance. You're gonna see that's gonna be most of the dragon. Most of the dragons in here are gonna have 2 things in here, and you'll see that. But that is just one of them. Then there's also the other one. Then there's also the other dragon here. Agni. Agni is just a strength 60% dragon. He does some pretty good damage, but he doesn't inflict anything. He's just straight up draw damage. So, and there are much better dragons as a result. Then there is Kagatsuchi, who has strength 45% and the prime strength skilled. So yeah, this whole tier is basically going to be the resistance and prime strength dragons. And his whole gimmick, if I was to show, is that essentially what prime strength does every single time their initial skill displayed at the top of their skill list becomes available for use, provided they are they are attuned to that element. They get a 15% strength increase for 10 seconds, but it won't be activated again for 15 seconds after activating the first time. So you can only have as much as 60%, but he burns. So technically, you could essentially say he's actually is technically stronger, but the fact that he burns is why I keep him here. And strength and Prometheus, the reason why I keep him here is also because of his. Because he's somewhat of a defensive option if you wanted to, but he's still a pretty decent dragon. Then there's Kamui. Kamui's the water version of Kagatsuchi, and he inflicts freeze instead. And then there's Hastur, who's the wind version of the prime strength dragons, and he inflicts sleep. And that's essentially it for those. Now moving on to light and shadow. For light, we have the one that is the other resistance one, because there's literally only there's only like about 2 dragons, if I remember correctly, that have the whole strength and resistance thing. Which had the strength and resistance thing, and the one for light is, I'm making sure, and the one for light is Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh, he doesn't do anything special. He does some pretty decent damage. His attacks are pretty good, but yeah, doesn't have any afflictions, so that's why he's down here. Then we have here Zodiac, one of the premier healing dragons. But there's a reason why no one really uses her, because healers suck in light content, especially, and it could be replaced, especially because of a certain dragon. We'll get to up ahead. But the one thing that makes them why I put him above, say, Simurgh and Garuda is, one, she doesn't heal. She doesn't heal the dragons. She doesn't heal with her skill, but instead she gives a defense boost, a pretty strong one at that. So, like a 40% strength defense boost. So yeah, she's good for survivability. And she can actually do some pretty decent damage, at least compared to the other healing dragons. Then, of course, we have Neonathotep. Now, Neonathotep, there's one issue I have with him. He sounds okay at first. He's a great dragon. The issue is that what his skills are. First of all, strength plus 50% when your HP is 30% or above is kind of stupid. That means if you go below 30%, you lose 50% HP. Then there's his Moon and House skill. So, if the user attuned to Shadow, grants the user the Bloody Tongue effect for 20 seconds when HP drops to 30%. This effect grants the user one use shield that nullifies damage less than 60% of their maximum HP, and increases their strength by 30%. These effects do not stack and are lost upon taking damage. So, yeah, you can have technically 80% HP, 80% strength, but good luck holding that. That's the one issue I have with Neonathotep. Because you could go from 80% to 0 and like that. That's why he's not that good. And he doesn't even affect anything, so yeah. Now let's move on to B+. First up we have Cerberus. Cerberus is better than all of these because it's a better Agni. She is once again a strength 60 dragon, but the difference is that, first of all, unlike Agni, who doesn't inflict anything, Cerberus actually inflicts burn. Not only that, but she has a 30%, mind you, it's a small one, a 30% chance to reduce the opponent's strength by 5% for 10 seconds. But she has a 100% base chance to reduce their defense by 5%. So yeah, she is a much better dragon, and she can do a lot of attacks. So that's why I say she is much better than Agni and all the other ones. Then we have here, what's her name again? Dragon Eugene. Now, I was thinking about putting her back into A, but because Nimi seems to have taken over that role, it's kind of hard to. But she's still a good dragon. The problem is that her dragon foot just like Zodiac. Zodiac doesn't do much damage to Dodger because she moves kind of slow. Same thing with Dragon Eugene. The only difference why I said I praised her is because she's a HP dragon and she could do more damage than most of the other HP dragons here. Except for most of the HP dragons here, besides maybe some of the skill haste ones. Besides some of the skill haste ones we're going to get to later. But her abilities are useful. First of all, her skill. Well, first of all, let's talk about her skill. In her dragon form, her skill is a beam attack, but it freezes the opponent, which can be useful for some of the endgame bosses, but don't always use that. But don't always have to go with that. But the other thing is that her ability is completely unique. It is called Dragonule Blessing, if I remember correctly. Oh wait, yeah, it's seasonal. Yeah, Dragonule Blessing. And what it does is increases strength by 45% and crit rate by 20%. It is the only dragon. She is the only dragon that could boost crit rate. So that's why she is actually pretty dang useful. Now, moving on to wind, we have Zephyr. The reason why I put Zephyr here is because it's basically like Cerberus. Agni doesn't have anything that benefits her, but with Zephyr does. Zephyr inflicts stun. Other than that, it's basically the one version of Agni. Then we have Kagatsuchi. I already showed you what he has. He has strength. He's strength, and he is essentially strength plus 40% and overdrive punisher plus 25%, and he inflicts stun. Nothing special, just that. But that's about it. But his stun can be useful. In fact, it used to be one of the ways that people used to before we had the revive system and some of the other broken units, when we used to face what's his name, High Jupiter, because there was one thing that you had to either use Zephyr or Kagatsuchi to use. You had to stun what's the dragon's name? You had to stun High Jupiter at one point in Master Fight, because otherwise he would lose. And then of course there's Andromeda. But yeah, other than that, finish out with Kagatsuchi. Other than that, he's okay, but he's not really that good of a dragon, and not better than some of the other dragons. Now let's move on to Andromeda. Andromeda is once again another situational dragon. Now Andromeda only boosts her strength by 40%. The big difference, though, is that, but she's basically somewhat similar to she's Barbados. The main difference being is that she's better. So she does strength plus 40%, but when HP is below 30%, she gives another strength plus 30. When HP is 30% or below, she increases the adventurous strength if they're to the shadow by 40%, and her defense by 100%. So and her skill increases the entire team's defense by 30% for 15 seconds. So yeah, she's a defense buffing dragon, but mostly if you would use it on each characters that would stay in the low HP for the entire fight. Mostly, I would say that would be like the only ones I would say that would especially work well on, or at least the ones I would use that on, is like Belina, Curran, but Curran doesn't always have to stay at low HP. But though he does get stronger as a result of it. But in honest truth, like the only one you would see using it that would be, unless you don't have one of the other dragons that you would use, would be Veronica, because if you put it on Aldred or Belina, though not many people are using Aldred anymore, you wouldn't be able to transform into it and use that skill, but still, the abilities are well worth it. Gives good survivability. But that's essentially it for B+. Now let's move on to A. Now, you're going to be shocked to see an HP Dragon high, but you will be at least for some of the other ones, but not for 4-star at least, because as you saw, most of the 4-stars are in C, only go up as high as C+. So there's a reason why I put Phoenix here, though. Phoenix is a healing dragon for Flame. Now, here's the reason why I put her in there, because Phoenix is without a doubt one of the best in terms of healing. She's the second best dragon, behind one of the other HP healings, because one of the other besides one of the others behind one of the skill haste dragons, and that is because she just heals so much. She gives great HP and she gives good. She heals for a lot of HP to all teammates, and it does. And also, but the main reason why people used to always have Veronica with Phoenix, and the reason why, or at least just to have Phoenix in the party, and the main reason why is because, well, Phoenix has, Phoenix. Here's the thing, when you're in rage back in the day, healing was a big thing for some of the other stuff back in the early days. Even for some of the other stuff, you would want to have a healing dragon. You want to have someone to heal. You need healers for some of the harder stuff, and. But the problem is that if healing used to be where it would go across for everyone, and as a result being spread across for everyone, what's to say, the healing wasn't that good. But Phoenix gave regen to the entire to everyone, which essentially which isn't hindered by that fact. So that's why she's such a good dragon. She's an HP dragon. She heals the entire team for HP, but then she gives them a regen for a certain amount of time, and she's just a really good dragon. She's one of the best. She's like this in retrospect. She's one of the best HP dragons in the game. That's the only reason why. In fact, it's one of the only reasons why we haven't really seen much in terms of like new HP focused dragons. Like that's the main reason why I think we haven't seen one, and why we didn't get a 5-star HP 60 dragon. Or HP 40% with like some type of special ability. That's the only reason why. Though I'm thinking we're going to get a skill haste dragon eventually. Now moving on, we got Octos. Octos was... Okay, so Octos used to be... Octos... He's good on some units, but the only unit well, before we got absurd by a certain other dragon, I'll get it by Gala Mars. He was the only adventure that people would use Octos on was, at least that was considered meta, was Azalith. Because Azalith is amazingly powerful, and this dragon does well with it, because Azalith boosts her crit rate by a lot. So this dragon that does crit damage works very well with her. And the fact that it can stun is good, but his attacking animation and all this stuff is not the greatest. And that's essentially all I had to say about Octos. But good dragon, good for Azalith if you have it, if you don't have Gala Mars. Now, moving on to Nimi's. Nimi's has gotten some use now recently in the DPS. He is once again, he's a crit damage dragon, but the main difference is that his skill not only fills up the dragon, he has a healing skill instead. And for his skill, but his healing skill actually fills up the dragon gauge, as well as extends the shapeshift time for 5 seconds. So it allows you to stay in dragon form for longer. But there's only one unit that actually uses there's only a few units that use Nimi, specifically Luther and Tiki, and Tiki and Luther have been, and Orsum too, but Orsum and PH1. But yeah, some of the weaker people have been using like stuff like Leviathan and Nimi's, but yeah, the only one that would probably be noticeable is Tiki and Luther, who aren't the most amazing right now. but that can change. Now, moving on to wind, we have Long Long. Long Long is one of the strongest wind dragons in terms of dragon DPS. He's also a crit damage dragon, and for a while was one of the best dragons on Lin Yu until they found out how much better certain other comps became and how much the poison meta became the thing. But yeah, but for the longest, but Long Long is still a good, decent dragon. Doesn't do any. Unfortunately, his skill doesn't do. Even though it looks amazing, seeing as how Long Long does basically a Kamehameha. Long Long doesn't do much of anything else. Long Long doesn't do much of doesn't have like a secondary, like his skill doesn't have a secondary effect that makes it really useful. So that's why I kept these dragons at A tier right now. And these are the only three actually right now that have that crit damage dragon. The strength and crit damage. And then there's Popstar Siren. Now Popstar Siren is a good dragon. She's not strong in the dragon form, but the main reason why she used to be the only thing that Popstar Siren used to be good on in terms of light DPS light units was Chittose, but she's since been usurped. But she's still a good substitute, and but there's also units like one of the best, but on off element she's actually still seen some use, specifically with Halloween Lowen. Halloween Lowen uses her because of her skill. So her main thing is that she does boost damage, but not too much. The amount of damage she boosts is only a small amount. It's only 40%. The main difference being is that she increased and her acceleration is essentially if you have two of the dragons, you can increase the shift time for the entire team by 3 seconds, but you can only have essentially 2 of them, and it'll increase it by 5 for light adventurers. The main reason why people like her is because of her skill, which can be used twice, mind you, during the shapeshift. As the first one increases the entire team's strength and defense by 20%, and increases the energy level by 3 stages at the level 2. Before, it was just 15% for strength and defense, but it still had the 3 stages. But yeah, and essentially you can energize the entire team and give them 40% strength and defense with her. So that's the one reason why I say why she's got some use, but she doesn't do much in terms of attack damage, but still, her skill is very much viable. Then there's Marashitan. Now, Marashitan is a very strong dragon. The reason why I put him up above some of the other dragons is because she inflicts bleed. She's strength 60 jungle, but she inflicts bleed, and she's one of the strongest shadow dragons in the game. And like at least in the dragon form, but yeah, she is she is still very much, she can still be considered viable as a substitute. So yeah, she's a great unit, and she's especially good when you stack more bleed with her. So that's all I had to say about her. And then we're moving on to Chittonius. Chittonius is a little bit unique. Here's the thing. His strength is 55%, but he has this thing called Dragon's Might, which is unique to him. And what it does is, well, first of all, his skill, by the way, does some pretty good damage and poisons the enemy, but his ability is where it comes into play. The more you transform, the stronger your adventure gets. You see, every time you transform, he gives us a permanent 10% strength boost to the adventurer. It can only be used twice, but essentially, at most, he could give you 75% strength boost if you shapeshift twice. So certain units that benefit from that could shapeshift a lot, such as Lafna, and even what's her name again? Oh my God, Forte. Or even like can all get a really big benefit from Chittonius. So that's all I have to say about Chittonius.
Moving on, we're going to A plus, where we get some of the better ones. Now, A plus is filled with the dragons that are used by some of the other characters, but that are low on the that would be less frequently used, but still used in the meta, as well as the Punisher dragons, or have unique situations that they use them in. So first up, we have Apollo. He has Burn Punisher. He has Strength and Burn Punishing, which which other dragons in here also have. And he does some decent damage. He is seen very viable, but like he's there's not too many of the top adventurers who are being used right now would use Apollo, except for maybe actually wait, no, I don't even think Halloween Mim would Halloween Mim would probably use it. So I was thinking about putting him in the S, but I'm keeping him in here for just because there are better dragons than him that people use more often. But for some, there could be definitely some use in there. Leviathan is one of the strongest dragons to transform into. In fact, excluding the unique dragon transformations as well as the other unique dragons, specifically for Gala Mim, Halloween Mim, and Lafna. He is the second strongest dragon that in terms of damage he could do the most. In terms of damage by himself, he is the second strongest dragon behind Gala Mars. And with the others accounting the other dragons, excluding I'm pretty sure Tiki, excluding Tiki, Urias, Aldrin, and Belina. He is the second strongest. Excluding those ones, he is in fact the fifth strongest dragon, and he inflicts Bog with his skill, which if you didn't know, Bog does 50% more. When an enemy who's inflicted with Bog receives 50% more damage, so there's that. And Leviathan is just a really strong dragon, very useful. In fact, some of the best units. The best unit that would say that uses him right now is probably Pipple, who still seems some use today. Then we have now moving on to Win, we have AC011 Garden is better. He's better than Neonathotep. He doesn't have that. He has strength plus 50%, but he isn't encursed by that 30% thing. Doesn't have anything special with his skill, but here's his skill too, Dauntless Rampart. If the user is attuned to Win, grants them a one-use Divergent Sphere that nullifies damage less than 40% of the user's maximum HP every 15 seconds that pass without the user being knocked back by an enemy. Now, that's actually pretty good, especially when there are certain units that can give the team immunity knockback, such as Victor. Now, Divergent Shields can stack with ordinary shields. Also, the user's strength is increased by 30% while the shield is active. So yeah, very good unit. Pazuzu is just like Apollo, he does poison punishing, strength plus, which is strength plus 50% and poison punisher plus 20%. His skill poisons the enemy and reduces their defense by 5%. Now, as I said, with Apollo's does inflicts burn for 30 seconds, reduces their defense by 5%. And Apollo's does 41.5% brain damage every 3.9 seconds. So essentially, that means you're getting out of that 30 seconds, you're getting, if I had to say, that's about you get 7 hits worth of that. And with Pazuzu, it's actually more. It's 10 times, but it's weaker. But yeah, that's essentially it for those ones. And then we have here, now moving on to Light, we have Cupid, and I gotta look up her name because look at the other one because yeah, Taishan Gongzu. Now Cupid is what's to say she still sees use and she's good for healer sun. She does strength by 60%, but first of all, if you ever do onslaught events when there's a light dragon, she is going to be one of the ones that people are going to be using along with another one that we're going to do talk about later, Daikokuten, because not only does she restore HP to all allies, but she increases their team's crit rate by 25% for 15 seconds. So yeah, that's a good skill. And then there's Tishan Gongzu, who is the most recent HP skill haste dragon for light, and well, she basically usurped Popstar Siren for best dragon on Chitose. And her skill energizes the team. It's essentially, you could say, the a weaker light hero version of Shinobi's. That's all I had to say. And then there's Prometheus, the shadow version of it. Essentially, you can essentially say it does the same thing as Pazuzu does. Punishing Shadow Dragon does the same amount of damage, but doesn't reduce defense. But that's essentially it for that one. Now let's move on to S, where we talk about the really good dragons. First up on the top block is Konohana Sakuya, one of the skill damage dragons, which boosts strength by 20% and skill damage by 90%. She's nothing too extraordinary. Other than that, she is a great dragon, and her skill, while it doesn't burn anyone, makes it so that the user's next skill does 40% more damage. So that's it. And she used to be one of the premier dragons that everyone was having until Gala Mars. Same thing going for Dread King Ravelers, which I actually have to go for him because he has a lot. So he actually burns the target. His skill actually burns the target and does some pretty decent damage. Only like about 500 damage, but yeah, he burns the target and it can do a lot. Like doing 97% flame damage essentially doing it for 3 times, but it does a lot. Now, here's what his thing is. He boosts strength if the user strength and 4 strike damage too, which is if the user is attuned to flame, increases strength by 55% and 4 strike damage by 60%. So and then his ability too, if the user is attuned to flame, increases skill gauge fill rate by 30% when the user's 4 strikes connect. Kind of like its own version of skill haste essentially, but instead you have to use your 4 strike. But slows the rate the mode gauge decreases by 30%. Here's the thing about him. He is a great dragon, but only 2 units right now are really using him as the optimal ones, which are Chelsea and Berserk and Hunter Berserker, which they're below. They haven't seen. They're like off meta right now. They need mana spells to become better. But then again, we got King Rapidus not even like half a year ago, because he came out in January when we got the what's it called event. Actually, wait, no, it has been half a year now. He came out in no, it would be the end of the month. It would be, but yeah, he came out in January when we got the Monster Hunter crossover event, and then we have. Actually, he would be February. Yeah, Dragalia after this we got in February 4th. So August 4th we would have him for half a year. So yeah, same thing with the other ones. But Hunter Berserker we haven't even had for. He came out at the end of January. So yeah, haven't even had him for half a year yet. So I highly doubt we would be getting them for getting mana spirals for him anytime soon. Then we have Gabne and Krene, Siren, and Halloween Maritimus. So Gabne and Krene is unique. So here's the thing about Gabne and Krene. And they have strength plus 45%, but they have skill recharge too, which makes it so that it fills 35% of a skill's skill gauge after using that skill, which is very useful. It makes it so you can get skills off much faster. And his main skill creates a buff zone that lasts for 10 seconds, and gradually fills the skill gauge of every adventure inside it by 9.1% every 0.9 seconds. Essentially, what ends up happening is that if you want to know what ends up happening, it completely fills up the skill gauge if you stay in it the whole entire time, because it every 0.9 seconds essentially means that would be, if you do that 10 times, that's 11 times that it does it, because not, that would be 9 times that it does, that would be 11 times that it does that. So if you take that 11 times, so 9.1 times 9.1 times 10, yeah, that's a little over, yeah, it essentially fills up the entire skill gauge if you stay in it the whole entire time for any skill. So that's the one use out of it. He's a really good, they're like one of the most optimal dragon right now for most adventures. Same with Popstar Siren, though not as much, but Popstar Siren still sees some use. In fact, the strongest water adventurer, at least by that standalone, not counting team DPS, which is Mitsuba, uses Popstar Siren. And she is the water skill damage dragon. Does the same effect. Boost her skill and does the same effect. Her skill does the same effect. Boost, which after you use it, boosts the skill damage of the user's next skill by 40%. Then there's Halloween Maritimus. Now, Halloween Maritimus is a limited time one, but the main thing that's really good at it is that he's a really good HP and skill haste dragon. So he restores HP to all allies, but creates a buff zone that lasts for 10 seconds and increases the skill damage of adventurers inside it by 30%. So for 10 seconds, you could use any skill and it does 30% more damage. So that's a really useful dragon. In my opinion, the second best out of the skill haste dragons. Yeah, Taishan Gonzo is the weakest, by the way. Then we have Vayu. Typical wind version of these three. The wind version of the skill damage dragons does the same effect. Nothing else to really talk about. But in truth, he's probably the strongest of the two in the dragon form, because because the skill, I think, I know it does more damage, but it also attacks pretty fast. So yeah. Then there's Ariel and Freyja, the two skill haste dragons. Ariel is unique, where Ariel is actually strength and skill haste. Only doing skill haste 30%, but strength plus 50%. In fact, most of all the buffers on wind actually use Ariel for optimal DPS. And she has a really strong skill that does 1200 damage and inflicts stun for 67 seconds with a 180% chance. Ariel is a really good dragon and is very beneficial. But then there's also Freya, Freya can have a little bit more versatility because it allows for healerless ones, specifically with though that's mostly only in the kit in with that only it pertains to like Expert Sierra. Here's the thing: not only does it's an HP and skill haste dragon, but this is the best. Not only is she the best, not only is Freya the best skill haste dragon, she's the best healing dragon. Remember how I said Phoenix only has heals the second most? Freya does the most. Even though technically her regen is weaker than Phoenix's, as well as the amount she heals HP wise, it lasts for 5 seconds. The regen lasts for 5 seconds longer, which allows her to last longer, and as a result gives more heal, and as a result of that, Freya heals more than Phoenix. So yeah, but not only that, but her skill also energizes the entire team. So yeah, Freya is a very, very good dragon. Unfortunately, I don't have her. Trying to get her. That's in fact, it's one of the only two dragons I don't have that's for mess here. In fact, out of all these dragons, I have every single one except for Garland, Freya, Azazel over there. And yeah, essentially that's it. All the other ones I have. I have every single last one of these ones. So yeah, I have every dragon besides those two. Besides just Garland, Azazel, and Freya. Huh. But other than that, yeah, Garland is a great. So yeah, all I have to say is Freya is a great dragon, and try to get her on your team if you can, because she will be very useful, and especially level up if you want to. If you decide you want to be the, if you decide you wanted to be the, if you're ending up planning on playing the role of the buffer in a hero-less run of Ciela, Expert Ciela. Now let's move on to light. First up, we have Daikokuten. Daikokuten is amazing. Unfortunately, she's time limited. Unfortunately, wait, did I say she? Because I'm pretty sure Daikokuten is he. Yeah, he. I don't know why I said he, but yeah, Daikokuten is amazing. Almost every adventurer, besides a few of them, are using Daikokuten. And there's a reason why. First up, strength plus 55%, and he has a unique ability called Whirlwind Strength, which, if the combo count is 15 or higher, increases strength by 25% for light adventurers. For the light adventurer that he's equipped to. So that means that's 80% strength. Not only that, but his skill is really good, because not only does it do 700% damage, but it creates a buff zone that lasts for 10 seconds that increases the attack rate of adventurers inside it by 20%. And attack rate boosting is kind of busted. In fact, if you want to know how busted it is, well, let's just say this. When Cayenne came out, everyone opted at least to get one of his Agito weapons maximum bound before they finished the tree. Most of the top players. And the reason why is because the attack rate buff is such a big advantage that it just it's better to get that done first before you build the tree. Then you can build the tree before going on to your trying to get your second or third one. And then finally we have, so Daikokuten, a very good dragon. Almost every light adventurer uses it. Then there's Corsair Phoenix. So Corsair Phoenix, Corsair Phoenix is a, let's see, if I remember correctly, yeah, it's one of the strength of punishing dragons. And yeah, she is a she. She inflicts paralysis, and she does strength of paralysis punisher. But here's the thing: she's good on one of the best units in the game, which is one of the newest units called Zubaji, which is one of the first light units. It's one of the two light units that is considered meta that isn't time limited, which many people were happy about. But the main reason why I put Corsair Phoenix above the other one is because of her ability. Not only does it inflict paralysis, doing a pretty good amount of damage, but it removes curse and poison. So, which can be very useful. No other dragon does. While the defense decrease is useful for Apollo and Pazuzu, it's not too amazing to do, especially when there's better units that could do much more. But Corsair Phoenix removing curse and poison, that's a really good unit. Now moving on to Shadow, we have Shinobi. Oh, and Corsair Phoenix, by the way, you can use her on as a substitute for most of the top adventurers that inflict paralysis, or in a team with people that can inflict paralysis. It's kind of a really good thing to use. Zubaji can't inflict paralysis, but still, there's so many adventurers on Night now that can inflict paralysis, so it's okay to have. But moving on to Shadow, we have here Shinobi.
Shinobi is the best skill damage dragon. Is best strength skill damage dragon out of any of the other dragons. Not only his is not the strongest skill, but here's the reason why his is the best. Because his, and instead of increasing the user's strength, user's next skill by 40%, he energizes the entire team, giving them much needed support. That's why I say he's the best one. So yeah, he is, and energizes increases skill damage, or increases skill damage by 50%. 50%. So he's on, as well as increases the healing, makes the healing recovery potency 50% better too. So essentially, yeah, Shinobi is a much better dragon. Is the best dragon out of all the skill damage dragons. But unfortunately, he got outclassed recently by Katseth, and I'll talk about her. Now, Fatalis. Fatalis is different. Just like Fatalis, the whole thing is you don't want to transform into Fatalis. Because here's the thing. He has straight up 80% strength no matter what throughout the entire quest, and that won't be hindered by like any combo count or like special HP requirements. Here's the difference though. Is there's a ending shapeshift effect that he has, and what it does is essentially if you end your shapeshift, you get cursed. Now there are ways to get around it, either by having an adventurer that does and the ways to get around it is by having an adventurer that does, well, just to show you, actually, just to show you how, the ways that you get around it, essentially, is either by using a wormprint that shadow that makes it so that you can block infliction. But remember, yeah, mind you, the strength plus 50% and ending shapeshift equals curse 2, which is for the rest of the quest, irrespective of their element, and the strength 30% for shadow. But here's the only reason why I'm saying that, essentially, if you use him on other elements, he would only give a 50% strength boost, but that's still kind of decent. And you give him to light, and it'll be fine because they're immune. Light units are immune to, what's it called? Curse. But you can use like wormprints to negate that. But mind you, you have to make sure you don't get hit, because otherwise fatal, don't get hit by them where you get inflicted, because otherwise then you would waste the 3 of them, and as a result then you still get cursed. But the other way to get around it is actually through Cayenne, because Cayenne, when he makes it, and mind you, it only works for units that don't have blind rays, but here's how it works. Whenever you're Cayenne, whenever you're essentially whenever you happen to use when Cayenne uses this one attack he uses some attacks that have it where he has those unbreakable orb things, satellite or unbreakable satellite orbs, I'm pretty sure it's called, that stick around. They inflict blindness. If you run into them, they overwrite the curse. And also, you can also use it with Algid Berlin. You can use Fatalis with Algid or Berlina, and they won't be affected by the ending shapeshift. So that's like the one thing. But then there's Azazel. Azazel is the HP skill haste dragon for Shadow, and he's a little bit unique. He is very good. He doesn't heal, unfortunately, but what he does instead is really useful. He does some okay damage, but its utility is where it's really good. He inflicts poison, and he also gives the entire team Poison Punisher, a 15% Poison Punisher. Essentially, they do 15% more damage to poison enemies for I think 40 seconds or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, he essentially gives Poison Punisher for his skill. So he's a really good unit. In fact, most healers are now using Azazel and transforming into him because, hey, Poison Punisher is great.
But that's going to be it for S. Now let's move on to S plus dragons, because there are two of them. There is Gala Mars and Gala Katsith, and they're both broken. Gala Mars is pure strength. He gives you a strength plus 70% boost, but here's where the other kicker comes into play. If your HP is 50% or is at least at 50%, he gives you another 20% strength, giving you a 90% strength. That's the most that any dragon can give you from abilities. And he has a great ending shapeshift that gives you skill gauge plus 100%. Mind you, that's if you max unbound him. And his skill is very good because it does 700. His skill does 750% damage, but it can be used twice, and it gives a 20% strength buff for 20 seconds at when he's max unbound. He is one of the best. He is the best dragon for flame. In fact, every unit besides Chelsea and besides Chelsea and what's the other guy? And Hunter Berserker actually use Gala Mars instead, just because of how his thing is. In fact, he's one of the best. He's the strongest dragon. In fact, he beats out most of the dragons besides excluding the special unique Dragon Drive transformation characters that have unique transformations, like specifically the Dragon Drive ones and Divine Dragon transformation, like Tiki Urius, Algin, and Belina. He only is outdone by one of the dragon, and that is Lafna's Neonathotep, especially Neonathotep, when you poison the enemy. When the enemy is like poisoned, or when the enemy is poisoned. That's it, essentially, because, yeah, Gala Mars does a ton of damage. Gala Mars is insane. He is very strong and very useful. In fact, there's literally strategies you can use where you could transform into him once in Expert Volk, and then you will keep transforming into him after every time by the time the countdown is done healing him up. But mind you, you have to unlock you have to have Gala Mims and unlock her skill, and you have to have Euden's skill when his mana spiral version of his skill. Using both of those two, you can literally just try getting into Dragon Drive form very quickly, especially if the other adventurers have it too. Or use that setup too. But yeah, if you do that, it's crazy how much you can transform into him. Then Gala Katsith. Instead of strength, she's all about skill damage. In fact, what's to say this? Zero Unbound, she's already better than Shinobi. That's how powerful she is. And her skill is all about buffing skill damage. When she's not fully unbound, it's only 120%, but when she's max unbound, it's 180%. And the way that it works is, what you do is you get 15 of these like special things called, if I remember correctly, yeah. Here's what it is. Skillful trickery. So the way that it works is that it increases the damage dealt by the user's next 15 skills by 120% at the start of quests. Every 30 hit combo increases the damage dealt by an additional skill by 20%. A maximum of 15 of the skill damage increasing effect can be stored for use, and any excess will be discarded. Now, when you max upon it, it becomes 180%, and it's 25 hits instead. And then the ending shapeshift is adding more to them. When you end a shapeshift initially, it's only 5 for the 120. It's only 5 skilled for 100 for the 120% one, but when you max about it, it's 8 instead for the 180%. Her skill, and here's the thing, she has a unique attack transformation, just like kind of similar to Gala Mars actually does too. She's stronger in terms of her standard attack damage, but the one thing that's really good about her is that her standard attack inflicts sleep. Can inflict sleep. 100% at level on combo 1, 110% for combo 2, and 120% for combo 3, and it increases. It's at first it's only it's only for 45 seconds, then it goes 5 to 6, and then 6 to 7. So yeah, But in truth, yeah, essentially, Garakatith is insane. The only downside is her skill. Her skill kind of isn't that great. It doesn't do anything special, kind of like Gala Mars does. But hey, she's already kind of busted already, so yeah. But in honest truth, she once again took over most of the spots. The only people that actually held it up, that still hold up their spots, are Fatalis, and at least for DPS, are Fatalis and Prometheus, who, and the only adventures that use those two are, and the only adventures that use Fatalis and Prometheus are, if I remember correctly, there's only 3 of them, which are, if I was to go over, I know one of them happens to be, yeah, the 3 that actually use them, at least for DPS wise, are Durant is one of them. The other is, yeah, it's Durant who uses, one of them happens to be Durant who uses a Prometheus, Linnea who uses Fatalis, and Delphi who also uses Fatalis, and mostly because of, well, Delphi has that big glaring weakness involving strength, and Linnea and Durant don't have any attacking skills. But that's essentially it for this case. I'm going to be doing another one probably at the end of this month when we get more dragons as a result. And if you guys like this video, click the like button and leave a comment down below. Also share this video around. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, click the notification bell so you get notified on all my videos. Other than that, I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.